So you want to get pregnant, but you might need a little bit of help. What could be your first step? IUIs. Let's talk about it. So yes, I'm making a series talking about different ways that you can get pregnant if you're experiencing what could be considered infertility. Maybe you've been trying at home for a while and things just aren't working, and so you're trying to figure out what could be your next step. So that next step might be IUI. So first I'm going to talk about what is IUI, and then I'll talk about the reasons you might want to consider that, or how to kind of talk about your options with a medical professional. So an IUI is oftentimes the first step for some people if they're not able to conceive naturally at home. And when I say you can't conceive naturally at home, that could be because you've been trying and it just hasn't been working. Or maybe you don't have all of the parts to be able to try at home. For example, my spouse and I both only have eggs, and so we needed to get sperm. Therefore, we needed to try something not at home. So what is an IUI? IUI stands for intrauterine insemination, and it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's inseminating in the uterus, intrauterine, uterus. So if you yourself have a functioning uterus and a, somewhat normal cycle enough that you do produce eggs, or maybe your partner, then you can try for an IUI. What's going to happen with an IUI is first, you're going to go to a fertility clinic and you're going to make a game plan with your RE, reproductive endocrinologist. So those are the doctors that work at fertility clinics. And the reason I say you want to set up a plan is because IUI is not the, same fit for everyone. There's going to be different approaches, even with something as simple as an IUI. What I mean is that some people are going to need to be on medications and some people are not on medications. I've done both. I've done medicated cycles and non-medicated cycles. For me, the medicated cycles worked, but for some people, non-medicated might work for them. So you're going to talk with your reproductive endocrinologist and try to figure out the reasons that the at-home conception isn't working. Like I said, if you've been trying for a while, they might want to do some testing to figure out if you really are ovulating at all. If you're ovulating on a regular cycle, what is your follicle count? There's a lot of different testing that they can do to try and figure out the reasons it's not working for you at home, and then see if the IUI works. If you're coming in as a maybe potential queer couple, single person, or just somebody who cannot conceive naturally at home because they don't have all of the parts, like myself and my spouse, that might be a little bit less testing because you're just there because you need help because you don't have all of the parts. So for me and my spouse, we didn't need to do a ton of testing because there was no reason that I couldn't conceive. It was just, we don't have sperm and we were not going to do that at home. So that's what you're going to do first, is set up a game plan. And they're going to talk to you about whether or not you need to take medications or not. If you need to take medications, they will get that all set up. And then you're going to do monitoring. Monitoring is really important because they need to track your cycle to know when you're ovulating to do the IUI. So with IUIs, you do tend to go to the clinic quite often because they need to monitor you at certain intervals, and you will get like a calendar from your fertility clinic, and they will kind of tell you, you need to come in on this day of your cycle, this day of your cycle, blah, 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 and they'll give you that. And each clinic is different. There's not a standard, you come in on day one, day this, day that. Different clinics have different standards of what they do. So talk with your clinic and see how that goes. And then once you've kind of started your cycle, you're doing your monitoring, all of that, then once you get close to ovulating, then that's when you're going to do the IUI. So for some people, they're going to test at home themselves, and sometimes it's going to be through the monitoring. But when you get to, I'm going to ovulate, usually it's the day before. Sometimes they will do it the day of, but normally it's done like the day before that they will have you come in and do the IUI. Now, sometimes especially if you're monitoring at home and using like the ovulation strips and those sort of things, you can get your positive of I'm gonna ovulate and then call the clinic and you have to go in the same day. That happened to me multiple times, so make sure if you're doing IUI, you have good flexibility with your job if you are employed, because sometimes you need to do things last minute and that's just how it goes. So just remember, you're gonna need some flexibility and some forgiveness within this whole thing. Once you go in, the process of the IUI is, actually, let's back up first. If you are using frozen sperm, you need to make sure, and again, your clinic will tell you this, but you need to make sure that that sperm is at the clinic well before you go in for the IUI, because they need to make sure it's there, it's stored, and it's ready. If you're using fresh sperm, so somebody is giving a sample instead, they will have to come in and give that sample before you go for the IUI, usually a couple hours before or possibly even the day before. So just kind of keep that in mind. So once you go in, then the clinic will have already, if it's frozen sperm, they will have already thawed out the sperm and washed the sperm. And the sperm getting washed is just getting the best sperm left instead of like all of them. So the washing kind of takes away some of the, in quote, bad sperm. So then you're gonna go in, and it's kind of similar to getting a pap smear with a few extra steps. So you're gonna go in, you'll, change, put your little blanket or sheet on because you're gonna be pantsless. And when they come in, they will bring in a catheter, a speculum, and they will have the sperm. And then you put your feet up in the stirrups, just like you would with a pap smear. They're gonna put in a speculum and open you up, and then they're gonna put the catheter in, and the catheter goes all the way up to the uterus. So if you're thinking, I'll put a picture up here of what it looks like, but it's gonna go past the vagina, the cervix, and up into the uterus, hence the IUI, intrauterine. If you're doing something like this at home, which you can do, typically it's only through the vagina or maybe the cervix, but you wouldn't go up into the uterus at home. So they'll put the catheter up into the uterus, and then they will take the syringe that has the sperm, and they will connect it to the catheter, and then either your doctor, or sometimes if you have a partner and you want them to, mine was allowed to, they press the syringe and then the sperm goes up through the catheter into the uterus. If your partner is okay with it, I would recommend doing that, just because then it gets them involved in the process and kind of makes it a little less medicalized, and it's not very romantic when you're doing an IUI. But once that's done, then they will take the syringe off, double check and make sure that the sperm did go in. And then once that happens, they will take the catheter out, they will take the speculum out, and then they'll have you rest for about 10, 15 minutes. It depends on the clinic, but generally it's about 10, 15 minutes. And then after that, you get to get up and go on with your day. So with IUIs, you don't have to have like a day of rest. I know with IVF, sometimes places will want you to rest for the day, but with this, you don't have to, because it's kind of mimicking natural conception. And if you naturally concepted, you would do what you do, and then you would just go on with your day. So you might have some light cramping throughout the day just because of that process, which is very normal, but you would just go on with your day. You can go home and rest if you want to. Please do if you can, but you don't have to. And then that's pretty much it. Then you just wait, and normally within 2 weeks, most people test sooner, but within 2 weeks, you will find out if you are pregnant. And like I said, IUIs are about, I think it's about a 25% chance.
Okay, editing Jill here. I just wanted to clarify that the success rate for IUI is not 25%. That was my mistake. It's under 35. Success rate is actually only 13%, and it ranges from about 3 to 9% for those over the age of 40. So it is pretty low.
IUIs are not magic, so it's not like if you don't get pregnant the first time, there's something wrong with you. It took us 4 times, 4 IUIs to get pregnant. And I think it was that 4th one that we medicated and we got pregnant. So you might have to go through a few rounds of IUI to potentially get pregnant, and that's perfectly normal. No, don't get too concerned if you don't get pregnant the very first IUI, because your chances are lower than they are higher, is what I could say. So that's perfectly normal. But yeah, that is IUI. Like I said, you know, who would use an IUI? Any couple that is 35 or under and has been trying for a year, sometimes less depending on the situation, they might want to try an IUI, especially medicated, because they're having issues at home. Anybody above the age of 35 who's been trying for about 6 months, they can go and talk with a fertility doctor and they might recommend an IUI. And then of course there's anyone who just doesn't have all of the parts that they need. For example, myself and my spouse both only have eggs and uteruses. Uteri? I don't think that's a word. Uteruses. We didn't have sperm. We didn't want to do it at home ourselves, so we did IUI. Or like I said, if you're just a couple that maybe you have PCOS, you don't menstruate regularly, you might want to go and you might give IUI a try. So there's lots of different reasons. It is usually almost 100% of the time, it is way cheaper than going through IVF, way less invasive. A lot of times insurance covers it. Our insurance covered a majority of the processes of IUI, other than like getting sperm and such. And so that made it within our reach to be able to do. We could not afford IVF at that time, because IVF is usually in the thousands, anywhere from, gosh, probably like the cheapest I've seen is like $10K up to $100,000, depending on what you need to do in the process. So IUIs are much cheaper. It was usually only like a couple $100 per try with everything involved. So IUI is a great stepping stone. But again, if you're having any issues, please go talk to an RE at a fertility clinic and just see what they say. They might say IUI is not the best fit for you and you need to go straight to IVF, which I will be making a video next talking about. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions below concerning IUIs, the process, you know, anything about it, and I will answer those below. And yeah, also let me know if there's any other topics you want me to talk about, and I will be making those soon. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell so you see the next videos coming out, and like. I would really appreciate that. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.